Hello, and welcome to the webinar on ethics and generative AI. Starting up, well, 1 minute early. Appreciate y'all joining us. Let me watch. There's Shyamala right there. Let me promote you, Shyamala. And there's Christoph right there. Shyamala, how are you? And Christoph, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Good to see you. Christoph, how are you?
I'm also doing good. Hi, Bradley. Nice to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. Doing good. It's been a while. Had to remember how to use Zoom. That's a good thing to have to remember. Look, we've got 30 minutes and we're going to be punctual with this thing. Appreciate both of y'all setting the time aside. We're going to be talking about ethics, and we want to provide as much time as we can. We're going to keep it a simple conversation for the purpose of this half hour. And as people would continue to come in, I would ask you that if you have a question for the panelists, we'll try to get to it at the end of the half hour. Please, if you don't mind, put it in the Q&A box of the Zoom rather than the chat function, so we can make sure that we see that and can answer it if time provides. Look, let's get rocking and rolling. Shyamala, it's great to have you join us. You do so many different things. I don't think I would ever attempt to explain what you do. Take a moment, introduce yourself, tell us all about what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Shyamala Prayaga, and I'm the Senior Software Product Manager at NVIDIA, and I lead some of the conversational AI and Gen AI products here at NVIDIA. And I'm also the author of 2 books, so I keep myself busy with writing. One is The Emotionally Engaged Digital Assistant, and the other is my memoir called Close Calls, My Life of Unseen Miracles. And I'm writing the 3rd book, which is about the ethical issues, exactly the topics which we are talking about right now. So it talks about the invisible threat in the age of AI. So some of them we already know, some of them we don't know, but there may be some threats which we have to start thinking about. So that's about me. I'm also the founder of the Digital Assistant Academy, where we train and certify people in conversational AI. So that's about me.
It's I get reminded why I yield the floor rather than attempt to explain all of that. Shyamala, it's great to have you. Thank you for making the time. Christoph, great to have you as well. Take a moment, tell us what you do, tell us about Cyara.
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. It's tough now after Shyamala, so I cannot compete with that. But yeah, I would say I also had some fun in the past. At the moment, I'm Senior Director Digital at Cyara. We are industry leader in CX assurance for IVR systems, for agent-based phone systems, and of course also now conversational AI. In the past I have founded some companies also. We're deep tech, and I think 5 years ago or something we started to work with AI. And in those days we realized that there is no one taking care about the quality of AI. So everyone was working on some bots and stuff, and then no one was thinking about how to test these things, how to assure quality, how to make sure that they are not making up stuff as we see it right now with generative AI. So this is what we are doing since many years now, and going to a lot of conferences and usually opening the eyes of people there. It's always you see these light bulbs on their heads when you tell them, hey, these things are software, and software needs to be tested. This is common sense. And I mean, we have big examples like, I don't know, Google Spark introduction, or what could happen if you don't make sure that these things are saying the right things. Yeah, as you know, Bradley, I always make this joke in my introduction. In my private life, I'm playing drums. I'm located in Vienna, Austria. super rainy day today, thunderstorm and flashes. So I hope my connection doesn't die. But yeah, if you're here, you will find me on the weekends in some pubs on stage. And my ice-breaking joke is always, I'm actually a rock star being locked in the body of an engineer. Yeah, that's me.
Yes, aren't we all? Yeah, thank you for that. And Christoph, appreciate you. Shyamala, appreciate you. I'm Bradley Metrock, CEO of Project Voice, general partner of Project Voice Capital Partners, and we'll get right into it. Again, for folks coming in late, if you have a question, we'll try to get to it at the end of the half hour. We're going to be punctual with this thing and get right out at the half hour. If we have time for it, we'll get to it, and please put it in the Q&A section of Zoom rather than the chat. Also, additionally, for anybody who is registered in Eventbrite for this webinar, you will receive the audio and video files of the proceedings after it is over for on-demand replay. So, Shyamala and Christoph, there's a lot of different directions we can take this. This is a complicated topic. Ethics generally, and then generative AI adding more complexity to it. I want to just start simple. I want to stay simple for this thing, but I want to start simple and ask both of you for one piece of news that you have seen in the last week or two, could be longer than that, but preferably recently, that piqued your interest, that is related to generative AI, maybe has some sort of ethical slant overtly, maybe doesn't, but something that's piqued your interest and something that you've been following, and sort of use that to guide the discussion. Shyamala, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, there's a lot. I've been following the generative AI space for a very long time. But one which was very interesting is not exactly a news, but it's like an article published in Forbes, which says like generative AI can increase the number of medical malpractices, which happens in healthcare, and doctors are really worried about it. That really piqued my interest because, yeah, we are talking about generative AI doing a lot of things. We're talking about generative AI taking a job and all. That's a secondary thing. But think about it, like we are able to ask so many questions to these bots, and ChatGPT has been successful in cracking so many complex exams. Like we talk about, generative AI was able to crack medical exams by 60% accuracy, and we are talking about generative AI doing all other complex tasks, right? So those kind of things are really very interesting because first of all, cracking the exam, what does that mean? Like I can go and I can give the exam and then I can become a doctor, even if I don't have that kind of intelligence. What will happen to the patients, right? Taking over job is secondary. So that is a fear, which comes to my mind the moment I see a news like this. But then the secondary aspect to it is giving all of the information about the patient, like here's the patient's status, or here's the patient's diagnostic information, give me the diagnostic of that and give me more information. If generative AI is able to do that kind of thing, what will it do? Like, isn't all the private information out there in the cloud somewhere, which shouldn't be there? So what happens to the compliance, HIPAA compliance and all the privacy practices? So there's a lot of these concerns which comes out of that one article which I read, and I feel like really something we should be thinking about.
Well, I love it, and I happen to see the article myself, which is why I just grabbed it and immediately threw it in the chat for anybody to look at who wants to. There's a couple of responses I would have. The first one is that I think it's a great illustration of how AI and generative AI is redistributing jobs. So there's been a lot of talk about, like, my wife is an attorney, and she's become very concerned about AI replacing her job. And there's numerous reasons I don't think that she needs to worry about that, but some lawyers do need to worry about that a lot. And it's interesting to note that some of the narrative in AI has been about lawyers specifically, just to stay on that thread, that AI is going to replace them. You don't need a lawyer to do a divorce settlement or a basic business agreement or this, that, or the other thing. And so here comes AI encroaching on jobs. But this article actually takes it the entirely opposite direction, which is that thanks to AI, now the lawyers have got so many malpractice suits, they don't know what to do, and they're just swimming in business. But what really is going on is some lawyers are going to be swimming in business, the ones that are already busy, and then others are just going to be reduced to zero, which is kind of interesting. The other thing that I'll point out, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, and then Christoph, I want to ask you the same question about an article that piqued your interest. Shyamala, in terms of ethics, if you had an AI in healthcare and that AI was working with a patient and the AI was asked, what, given my condition, my circumstances, what medicine should I take? And the AI kind of reaches for that information, but it doesn't really have it. So it kind of hallucinates and it just makes some stuff up, like we know that it can do, and tells the patient something that is indefensibly inaccurate. Then the patient goes on to do that advice and gets better. Was that ethical or not?
That's an interesting question. So first of all, there are certain roles and certain responsibilities. So in my mind, although AI is helping and AI was accurate, I don't feel that is ethical because it can go the other way around as well. And we have seen news where people have committed suicide because the bot has asked it to do so, right? We have seen those kind of news as well. So I would say AI is good as a companion, AI is good as a collaborator, but AI taking over and AI becoming the whole and soul, if I have an issue, I'm searching for symptoms on Google. So once I went to the doctor and I was like, I have this problem, doctor. I think I have cancer, even before I had cancer, I said, and doctor was like, you know what, go to Google and just take treatment from Google. Why are you coming to me, right? So I feel like that's exactly the kind of thing we have to be thinking about. It can provide you information, and based on that information, you can get some benefit out of it. But it should not become the replacement, right? There are doctors for a reason, they have done so much studies. There are lawyers for a reason. So I feel like that is still unethical to be going and getting that information. And that's where we have to put the guardrail. If things go in the wronger direction, what happens?
Yeah, no, that's great. So it's a great story and just a great stream of thought. I appreciate you raising it. Christoph, I'm coming to you. I want to ask the same exact question. What is a particular article or piece of news in the media you've seen lately that has piqued your interest related to all of this stuff?
You will be surprised now. I was also triggered by Forbes. Yeah, so actually we're all reading the same stuff, it looks like. But a completely different article, yeah, and one that shed some light for me on an area that I didn't consider yet, although it's so near. Yeah. So the thing is, if you would ask me in general, I would say typical concerns. Yeah, we see all these deep fakes generative AI can do, and then the curse is a problem, and copyrights, and plagiarism, and bias, and all the typical stuff. Yeah? And then I read this article who was mainly about training generative AI with bad data. And not bad data in terms now of not enough data or badly labeled and so on. That data from a bad source. It was talking about training generative AI, for example, with only data from the darknet, where it's common sense that the bad guys are living. And it was from a tech perspective, it was super interesting. So I think we could improve this technology with things like this, because you could compare how generative AI being trained with good data versus this darknet data is evolving. Then everyone who tried out or has seen the darknet knows that people are using their different language. A lot of synonyms, acronyms, stuff like that, yeah, also to protect themselves. So it's a different natural language understanding and processing, yeah. So things where something like ChatGPT is so good, yeah. So it's interesting to see, and this article sums up a lot of good use cases. Yeah, we could use such a trained generative AI to give it to the good guys. Yeah, I don't know, the police, the court, lawyers, and so on, to find the bad guys on the darknet. Yeah, or to see something like trends on the darknet happening. Yeah, or to even find, I don't know, people selling their stuff that they shouldn't sell, yeah, or we know all these bad things that are happening there, yeah. And this is an area that I have never looked at before. Yeah? We are all thinking about, hey, ChatGPT is trained with data like Wikipedia and so on. Yeah, that most of the stuff there is pretty good. But this article was super interesting for me. And in terms of concerns, it opens the box of Pandora, because in the darknet, the typical ethics like, I don't know, fairness, bias, trust, accountability, social benefits, all this stuff has no place in the darknet. Yeah, so maybe privacy and security is high there, yeah. But for all these other ethics, there is no place on the darknet. Yeah, so huge concerns there. So if such a generative AI, and this article also names examples where this already happened, yeah. So I think some universities tried it already out. If this technology gets into the wrong hands, of course, there could be a huge misuse also. Yeah? So this is one that really touched me, and because all the other articles are in the last months turning around the same topic, but this was really a new angle for me.
Well, there's a similar question that I would ask you to what I asked Shyamala. So, if you're talking about training data and the ethics related to the data that goes into these models and these AIs, if you hypothetically said that if you used training data that involved a heavy amount of racial profiling, which is using archetypal and stereotypical thought processes about races to inform or predict future behavior, and then those AI models did in fact go on and, for example, save somebody's life, or either through healthcare or through some sort of predictive model, maybe at a law enforcement level, or maybe something in any vertical, it doesn't matter. Is that ethical? Is that patently unethical because of how the data was constructed, or is it ethical because it resulted in a good outcome?
Well, for me, it's completely unethical. Yeah? And let's imagine this works or ends up good in 100 cases, and in one case, like Shyamala said, someone has to die. Then it was not worth it. It's unethical, and I see this within our client base. We have some healthcare providers, also insurances, where the conversational AI gets in contact with people, usually in a very critical situation. So for insurances, for example, car insurance, you have an accident and the car automatically calls the insurance when the airbags open and so on. Yeah, and the conversational AI picks up there the phone and tries to help people with advice and so on. Yeah, and their quality assurance, making sure that the responses are super accurate, is one of the most important things. So it's not like in small talk where you say, well, we have a prediction confidence for the right intent of 70%. We are fine with that. Yeah, and this is what might happen also with this healthcare bot that gives some advice where it is somehow sure. In such critical cases, you need super high accuracy. You need to be, I don't know, 95% sure that you can give the right answer. Everything else is unethical. And if I would be sitting in this car having an accident, I would not like to have generative AI on the other side guessing and making up stuff.
You can say that again. So let me, I'll share with you the article that has piqued my interest, and then I can transition to the second question I got for y'all. So I'm going to throw this in the chat here. There's a growing number of companies. These are only the ones that are so large that they couldn't hide this information. There's a growing number of companies that have just outright banned ChatGPT from internal, work-related use. I'm sure it means different things to these different companies, whether it means not on your computer or not at all or whatever. That sounds troubling. And Shyamala, I want to ask you, and then Christoph, I'll ask you, you work for a large company. You don't have to disclose what their policy is, but what are your thoughts on what Apple, Samsung, Goldman Sachs, some of these other ones have done just to block this thing and say, forget it?
Yeah, I'm aligned with their decision on multiple aspects, and let me tell you why, right? Yes, it's a great thing to have, and it can save a lot of life and, make me productive. But think about it. If I, as a product manager, I'm going to ChatGPT and I'm saying, like, I'm thinking about this product, give me the requirement, which is not yet released. I'm releasing my confidential information out there into the system, which I'm not supposed to do, right? As an employee, it doesn't matter whether I work for a large company or a small company. The same thing, like if I'm, sending my entire code to the bot for code review, there might be some things. And exactly what happened with Samsung, like someone tried doing it and all of the confidential information and proprietary information was out there. That is why companies are concerned, because there's a lot of confidentiality when companies are building products. So yes, ChatGPT or something of that sort, which is external, should be banned. But maybe in order to improve the productivity, if that is the direction the industry is going, companies can look at building their own variant of GPTs. And I've seen a lot of companies doing that. Informatica has done that. And also I've seen like a lot of additional companies are going towards that direction where they are building their own version of the GPT for internal customers, data analysis or data visualization and all sorts of things. So I feel like using any third-party external tool is exactly the same thing. It has to go through some sort of governance process. We have to look at the threat. We have to look at what kind of legal issues we might run into if that information is exposed, because people are using for all sorts of information. It's not just for PRDs or just for code review, right? A lot of more things are being done with these generative AI tools out there. So I definitely feel that companies are going the right direction in terms of banning them, but also thinking about it like internally and creating their own variant of it, which I feel is the right direction to go.
Okay, excellent. Christoph, you heard Shyamala and what she had to say. Do you agree? Is this something that should be happening, or is this just normal for a big company? Sometimes they just disallow certain types of technology and there's just nothing more to it than that.
Yeah, I go along with everything Shyamala said. Yeah, I can confirm everything there. So I'm just trying to fill some gaps of what I see in production out there. So I'm seeing generative AI on-prem. Yeah, as Shyamala said, companies are running their own models, smaller subsets for their domain, or at least in the private cloud. Everyone wants to have their data staying on their servers. Yeah, no one wants their data somewhere on the OpenAI servers. Of course, and yeah, I think this is the right path to go down. Yeah, offering your employees something like that, because otherwise, what I also saw is in a big bank, yeah, it was blocked, and people just took out their own notebooks, put it on the table, yeah, and were using a hotspot on their mobile phone and sending the bank data through their private notebook to ChatGPT. And the thing is, for rather simple use cases that were so generative AI is super good if you have, I don't know, 100 pages of a PDF and you say, summarize this for me in one page. Yeah? So it's a huge time saver. I saw this in a big bank. They were analyzing the markets to tell their clients where they should invest, stuff like that. Yeah. And instead of going there through hundreds of pages of market reports, they use ChatGPT. The company blocked it, so they use their private computers and their own internet. This is then the wrong way to go. Yeah, so locking out your employees. Yeah, offering them something like an on-prem generative AI, offering them something in their own private clouds. I think this is definitely what we will see in future more and more.
Excellent. So I want to spend the last 5 minutes or so that we've got and just ask a simple question to close us out. And Shyamala, I'm going to start with you, and then Christoph, I'll close with you. Shyamala, there's a lot of layers went to this ethics in generative AI conversation, and we touched on some of them here, right? Starts with the data. We can talk about the ethics associated with that and how the data is constructed. We can talk about how then the data is used in different verticals. We can talk about some of the outcomes. We can talk about who's allowed to use it, who has access to it. There's a lot of different ways we could skin the cat. And as I said, we talked about some here. In your mind right now, what is the most important consideration for ethics and generative AI, the singular most important thing that matters to you?
Yeah. So I would definitely say, that we are not thinking about what can happen. What is the invisible threat? We are taking it in a very, very reactive manner. Like, oh, something has happened. Okay, now let's put some guardrails. Or something has happened. Okay, now think about this. But we are not thinking about it from, a proactive approach where, okay, this is the worst which can happen. How do we mitigate those things? Or how do we design? So eventually it comes down to responsible AI and responsible design. So in my mind, it's very much important while we are talking about ethics, while we are talking about all the issues with the data set. And Christoph brought up very good point, like, bad data set. But there could be use cases where, someone is designing a game and they want a generative AI to generate some content for the bad actor. So there could be those kind of things. We have to look at it from holistic angle. We have to look at it from all the different aspects, what can go wrong, and then come back and design a responsible solution, putting the right guardrails instead of saying completely ban it or need to have a clear regulations, very strict regulations. You need to get through like 10 level of layers of approval before you can design an AI solution. None of those things will work. So responsible AI is the only solution.
Excellent. Yeah, so that's simply put, and I completely agree with you. Christoph, I'm going to ask you the same question. A lot of different ways to skin the cat, a lot of different things that people are talking about when you say the words ethics and generative AI. What is the singular most important thing to you?
Yeah, as I've said, we are coming from CX assurance. So we are making sure that generative AIs out there are not making up stuff. Yeah, for our clients, the most important thing is always to get from an AI accurate answers and to get them very quickly. And to be able to do these things, I think you need transparency and accuracy. It's transparency because, as you said, Bradley, it's important to know how the generative AI is constructing data, how it is used, where it is coming from, who has access, and these things should be provided in an understandable way because it has an impact on accuracy and all these things that are being made up. I'll give you an example. My grandma also figured out ChatGPT. I don't know where and why, but she loves it and she believes everything that this thing tells her because it's super convincing in the way it provides information. And the problem I see there, it's not transparent enough for her to understand what is happening there, and it's not provided in an understandable way for, let's say, a normal human being, someone who doesn't have and master engineer doctor degree in technology or something. Yeah, so if people would understand better what's happening there, they wouldn't take everything as given that is coming back.
Well said. So appreciate both of y'all taking the time. We wanted to jump on. It's easy to go down rabbit holes with this topic. Just wanted to keep it focused, and y'all did that. Shyamala, Christoph, thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks to Cyara for hosting the webinar. I'm Bradley. And just as a reminder, everybody who's registered for the webinar will receive the audio and video after it's over, probably in the next day or two. Shyamala and Christoph, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
You got it. Until next time.